Hey, it's James Tierney here with another episode of Friday with Friends. Hey, I want everybody to meet my good friend Cari from the Tri-Cities in Washington. Cari, welcome to Fridays with Friends. Thanks so much for joining us today. Tell us all about yourself.
Well, it's so good to be here. Thanks for asking me to be on Friday with Friends, James. I have been selling real estate for 18 years here in the Tri-Cities area. Lived in the Tri-Cities since 1994. And prior to that, lived in Twin Falls, Idaho for just about a year. And before that, grew up in Southern California. So mostly stayed on the west side of this country.
Yeah, you're a left
And
coaster for sure.
I am for sure, yes. But I married a right coaster, and my husband, we've been married for 30 years, and he grew up outside of Philadelphia. But we have two kids who we had them here, and they've been born and raised here. And like most children, when you get to a certain age, you're out of town. So my daughter is going to college way across the state, and my son is itching to get out as well. But until then, it's a great place to be.
Awesome. Now, I really didn't know, when people say a lot of times Tri-Cities, there's a couple different places that are Tri-Cities. So I'm going to pull up the map and it's going to be widescreen
Okay.
so we can see where the Tri-Cities are.
Okay.
Now, forgive me for looking to the side, but you're over here by Kennewick. Is that right? I'm going to zoom in.
That's exactly right. Kennewick is one of the Tri-Cities.
Kennewick.
Yep.
All right. So here we are. So tell us about the area. What is it that's bringing people to the Tri-Cities?
Well, we have a huge proportion of engineers and research scientists because we have a old nuclear reactor that we are decommissioning.
Oh,
And
okay.
with that, then there's jobs that come with that, of course, and then the government is around and involved in those things. But as a consequence of that, we have a lot of engineers and a lot of scientists, a lot of nuclear great brains working here and doing research and things like that. So that's one of our major employers, is anything kind of associated with the site. And then we have a lot of agriculture in Pasco. We have viticulture because we have a
What
ton. We're in a great
what is that?
wine. Yeah. Oh, that's
Viticulture.
wine. That's wine. Wine agriculture.
Okay.
And we are on the same latitude as the Loire region in France. And
Oh,
so we have a lot of the same great, wine grape growing capabilities
okay.
that you're going to see in other areas. So we got our start because of World War II. We were they extracted the plutonium that they put in the bomb that dropped on Nagasaki. And that's how our area started. And really, I mean, before that, it was just kind of some farmers and not a big deal at all. But then after that, we really started to grow. And Richland is where the site is, but then Kennewick is nearby in the same county, and across the river is Pasco. We also have three rivers. We've got the Columbia River, which is the main river that you can see there. And then we have the Yakima River, which is off to the west. And then the other
Oh, this
larger
little
river.
stream over here.
Yeah, there you go. And then on the right, if you go to the east, you've got the Snake River, which goes more through Burbank County and kind of away from the Tri-Cities. But there's a lot of places around here called Three Rivers Stadium, Three Rivers Coliseum, Three Rivers, Medical. And it's because we've got the Yakima, the Columbia, and the Snake.
Interesting. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, Cincinnati has a Three Rivers Stadium and places like that.
True. Well, and we just have we've got a lot because the weather here is so great. We've got a lot of outdoor activities you can take place in, especially on the rivers.
Okay. All right. So, like things like just boating, like is it like motorboating or is it more like rowing, canoeing, kayaking type stuff?
More motorboating.
Okay.
Yeah. for sure.
So is this as popular and big as like Lake Havasu as far as boating goes?
No, not
No.
that big. No.
Okay.
There's a section of the Columbia where it's really, really wide and it's like a lake or like a larger body of water. And we have the water follies every year, which is the boat races is what they're called, but they're the what are they called, James? What are they
Water
called?
follies, boat races,
Yeah, but what are they? What kind of boats are those?
motorboats,
No.
speedboats,
Ah,
drag boats,
hydros.
hydros.
Hydro racers. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. You can do what you want with that segment. Edit it out if you want to.
Oh no, this is live.
Great. Anyway, those are the hydro boats, hydroplane races or whatever. And those take place in that section of the Columbia, which is so wide.
Okay.
But most of the rivers are just kind of river size, and they're not gonna have that much activity like Lake Havasu would.
Okay. Now, I know a lot of places are, struggling with drought and stuff, but with the rivers, how does that affect you guys? Because I mean, the rivers all flow from the mountains,
Mhm.
and if they get a lot of snow, then the rivers are high. If they don't get a lot of snow, then the rivers are low.
Correct. Yes. But we have actually been in. We were in a drought for the past couple years, and all the snow and the rain and stuff goes on the Cascades, and then yes, it melts down into our section of the state. And the snow, though, the last couple years wasn't what it needed to be, and so that's why we were in a drought. So yes, the water is there in the rivers, but the level was a little bit lower than it had been in the past, especially the Yakima. The Columbia is such a huge river, you can't really notice that much of a difference.
Sure.
But the Yakima for sure and the Snake were noticeably lower.
Okay. All right. So a good area for recreation and a good area for really smart, brainy people.
Yes.
What else? What else is bringing people? Like, what are you seeing in the market right now? Who are your typical buyers, and who are your typical sellers?
Right now, we have kind of two segments moving here. With the pandemic, James, so many people lived in Seattle, for example, and
Mhm.
because their jobs were in Seattle, and it's very expensive in Seattle.
Oh yes.
And some companies, Microsoft included, said you can live anywhere in the state of Washington now. We don't care. You don't have to come into the office. You
Oh
can be
wow.
anywhere as long as you stay in the state.
Okay.
Well, it's a big state, but we're the best part of it. And
Of
so,
course.
right, of course. And our housing obviously is so much less expensive than over in Seattle. So people were selling their Seattle homes, coming over here and buying gorgeous properties. And so we had a lot of West Side transplants in the last couple of years. And then we have Amazon is building two huge warehouses here.
Two more.
And yeah, so
They're building everywhere.
yeah, and we're going to get about 1,500 jobs from that.
Wow.
So we've got that kind of thing as well, because the weather is so mild. Kennewick
Uh-huh.
is actually a Native American word meaning winter haven or land of mild winter. So weather-wise, it's such a great place to have a company, to have anything happening, and we are so centrally located to anywhere on the West Coast. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, and now where's the nearest airport? Do you have to go to Seattle, or do you guys have your own airport?
We have our own.
Okay.
Yeah, the Pasco Airport.
Okay. So Pasco is the main city, or is it Kennewick?
They're actually all the Tri-Cities, which are Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland. They're all really, nobody would consider one over another as a main city. We really do just say Tri-Cities, and we mean all of them.
Okay. But you have three different municipalities and all those layers of government.
Exactly. Yes. And what also makes it confusing is Pasco is in Franklin County, and Kennewick and Richland and West Richland and some other cities are in Benton County. And so you have two counties, three cities, multiple, jurisdictions and legislatures and things like that. So it does. There's a lot of paperwork.
Oh, a lot of paperwork, sure. I bet it's challenging to see the differences in the home sales and what happens difference from one county to another. Cities aren't so bad, but usually counties change a little bit.
Yes, yes, yeah. And then, but I mean, what's yeah, every so often there's a move afoot, let's just become one big city, right? And you get, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 people pushing for that idea. And then the other 180,000 or 280,000 are like, no, it's way too complicated to dismantle what we have and just form one city. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a city here, and I say city, it's really not a city. They're villages, and there's a couple of different villages, and they're like it's called Round Lake, and there's Round
okay,
Lake and Round Lake Beach and Round Lake Heights and Round Lake Park. But if you're not from Round Lake, you just think of it all as one big round lake. But if you're in them, there's very distinct differences, and they're like, well, I don't like Round Lake this, and I don't like Round Lake that, And so again, internally, it's a big difference, but externally, nobody knows the difference.
exactly. Right. When you live here, you know the flavor of each city and what to expect. And if you don't, though, it's just the Tri-Cities is just one lump of geography.
Sure, sure. Now, the people that are moving out, why are they moving out of the Twin Cities, Tri-Cities?
Tri-Cities. They are basically they're dying. No.
They're just dying to leave.
Right. They're just dying. No. Yeah, you don't once you can check in, but you can never check out. No, we have actually, if people leave, it's generally youngsters who are just, they're done with college or they're wanting to see the bigger city life. And we also have people who move for jobs. But mostly, I mean, it's a great community to take care of you all the way up to, when you're retired, because we've got golf courses, we've got the mild weather, we've got, a great community. And so not a ton of people move out.
You don't think of Washington State having mild weather.
I know.
That's kind of like, people don't think of that. So
Right.
talk a little bit about that. What's bringing people in if people aren't really leaving?
Well, it's again, the weather is part of it, because we are to the east of the Cascade Mountains, and I'm no meteorologist, James, but from what I understand, when you have a large range of mountains like that, there's something called a rain shadow, where for a particular distance after you get past the mountains, not a lot of moisture falls.
Oh yeah.
And so that's part of why we are kind of dry and arid and more of it's called a shrub steppe landscape, which nobody knows what that means. So just kind of say arid or kind of a basin or deserty. And which is, again, they're like, wait a minute, Carrie, you're telling me you're in Washington State and you have 3 rivers and you're a desert. Well, yeah, kind of. So, I mean, I don't understand it all, but I just know that I enjoy it, and I don't normally have to worry about, intense weather events.
So, how far are you from the Cascades? Is that a place to go skiing?
You can. Most people locally would go to right outside of Walla Walla, which is about 45 minutes away. There's it's Bluewood is the name of the ski resort. If you want to go to the west side, you would probably take about it's 3.5 hours to Seattle. The Cascades are obviously just before Seattle, so 2.5 hours, I guess, to get there to ski. But the problem is, right, whenever, and anybody who lives in a city, or excuse me, in a state with mountain passes is going to know this, you've got passes that get you from one side of the state to the other.
Oh,
when
yeah.
the weather's fine, that's great. But when the weather is full of snow and blizzards and stuff like that, the pass is closed.
Yep.
Or you're stranded on there for ages, right? Mm-hmm. And so that would be the problem why I think most people don't go to the west to ski, but instead just hightail it down to Walla Walla, because it's just 45 minutes away and you don't really have a pass that you have to worry about.
Okay. So 45 minutes away, is that within an area that you would work? Do you do work in Walla Walla?
I don't do work in Walla Walla. They're in a different MLS from us. Yeah, they have even fewer houses on the market than we do. We have just about under 400, right around 400. And last time I checked, they had fewer than 100 houses.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
they
you're
would not like me to come down there and and also take some of their housing away.
so in your whole MLS, you only have 400 homes.
Right. Currently available. We have about 400 houses available. Quick story for my 18 years that I've worked here, selling real estate. When I started, we had about 1,200 homes on the market, and there were about 150,000 people in the Tri-Cities area.
Okay.
Since 2014, we have had fewer than in December 2014, we dipped below 1,000 houses available, and we've never gotten over that. We've
Okay.
always been dropping down ever since. And now we have about 300,000 people here and fewer than 400 homes on the market. So it's really tough to
So
find a
it's
house
definitely
here.
a seller's market.
Yes, 100%.
And it's been that way for a while.
Yes.
Okay.
For the last 7 years. And it just, the last 2 years really exacerbated that because, as I said, all the West Siders came over.
Sure.
So
All the
like,
Microsoft people.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So because it's a seller's market, what's your price point? What do prices look like for you?
Right now, our average sales price is just about 400,000.
Okay. And what does 400,000 get you?
Oh, that will get you a 3-bed plus an office, 2.5 baths, 3-car garage.
Oh,
But maybe not the best area.
okay.
So you can get a nice house in kind of an okay area, or you can spend 500,000 and get a nicer house in a nicer area.
Okay. If you're spending 400,000 here, you're in a good area. There's no
Okay.
doubt about it. And you
That's
don't
awesome.
always get a 3-car garage with 400,000.
Right. Right. Well, you could get a 2-car garage and a smaller house for 400 and be in a good area.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your square footage look like for 400,000? Like 2,000, 25?
No, 1,600.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
We're
here,
not a big city though in doing price per square foot for whatever
yeah,
reason.
nobody,
Like,
not here either.
okay, well, and it's always makes me laugh because on the real estate shows on Bravo and things, you're right.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we're trading at about $2,000 a square foot, and I'm like, what world is measuring real estate in those terms? So
Yeah. I mean, I could see that in vertical living because you get the same kind of stuff, but
right, makes sense.
different builders, you get different usage and different things, and it's more about the amenities in the house. I mean, do you have carpet or do you have vinyl planking or do you have hardwood floors?
Right.
Or or tile. And is the tile new or is it from 1970?
Right, right.
You
Well, and I've always said that judging a house price per square foot is like judging a person by their height and their weight. I mean, there's so much.
Well, there's plenty of people that do that.
Right. But I mean, there's so much there. You can't really do that. Just, it doesn't compute. It doesn't work. So.
Yeah, that only works in sports.
Right.
Typically wrestling and boxing.
Right. Okay.
So I mean, for us, if we for a 3-bedroom house, it's 1,800 square feet, we're going to be around 250 right now. Before
Wow,
it would be
that's
lower,
awesome.
be somewhere around 2 to 2.25, but with everything changed, we're about 250. So our 250 house is 400 for you.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Right. How many people do you have in your marketplace and how many homes available?
Well, so and I look at it because our MLS encompasses a very big area, including Chicago, and I'm an hour north.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I look at the details and the facts just for my county, for Lake County. It's a big square, and it borders Lake Michigan, and it borders Wisconsin, and then a bunch of stuff to the west. And of course, it borders Cook County, which is to the south, where Chicago begins. So we normally would have about 3,000 homes in inventory. We typically right now have about 300. we're increasing that. We're right. I think this week we're about 350, but we're really low. Last year, I think the most we had was 600.
Wow. Okay.
We would put on, 200 homes, and we would sell 250 homes,
Sure. Yeah.
over the course of the week. So we don't really ever get a chance to grow that number. The homes hit the market and they sell in 7 days or less, and our inventory never grows, which is great because people are paying attention. The prices they're home pricing homes right, and it sells quickly. And I tell people, just because it's January doesn't mean a home is not going to sell. It means, if the home's been on the market more than 7 days, you're not going to be competing with 5 people, but you might have to compete with 2 people, and you never know when somebody else is going to buy the home. And it's still true today that if you sleep on it, you won't sleep in it.
Sleep in it, right?
Right.
Now, how much over asking have most multiple offers gone to in your market?
So I would say from the springtime to maybe September, they were going, and I would tell people anywhere from 5 to 20,000 over.
Okay.
I never got to the solid point where we were really crazy and doing much more than that, because there's always the appraisals coming into play.
Sure.
There were people waiving appraisals. There were people doing appraisal gap waivers,
right?
Which was a new thing for us. We've never really been in that position. And so what you have is you have seasoned agents like me learning from agents who are ahead like you and going, hey, what's the appraisal waiver? What is that all about? And then you have other people going, well, we just want you to waive the appraisal. Like, well, that's not going to work. We don't have a pile of money laying around, And for the buyers, it was really a new paradigm, because they just didn't understand. And, I hear stories, probably, places like yours, where people were easily paying $100,000 over the appraisal, and they just wanted to get a house.
Right. I would say most of our multiple offers, which were super common, most of the time we went 20 to 40K over.
Okay.
But then, yes, there would be the appraisal gap waiver most often used was I've got 10K I can throw at this, so that if we're off by that. And when those started to, because you're exactly right, when some veterans were like, what is this? And it's like, this is helping us sell the house. Like, we need to use this, right? But it's crazy when you think about just the difference that can make, and the push for housing. I'm glad, though, to see that in some markets like yours, it wasn't crazy. Like, we got crazy with 40K over asking on a $300,000 house. That's significant. But to be 5 to 20 over, I feel like that's still remarkable for a seller, but it's within reason for a buyer. And that makes me happy to see that you guys didn't go out of control there.
Yeah. I mean, I had one property that my average price was a lot lower. And so these folks had talked with me early in the year. Maybe it was the end of 2020. And I said, we'd probably be able to sell your home for about 100,000, and then when it came time to put it on the market, I looked around and checked the market, and I said, we can probably do better than what I said before, because the market has changed. So we're going to list your house for 125. And I thought that was really aggressive. And then we got 19 offers, and they were all pretty much the same, which was the hard part. And so we just kind of grouped them together and said, okay, these are the offers at full price. You're not good enough. Right. And then we ended up selling the house at 135.
Oh, fantastic.
Right. And I had 2 people go, well, we're going to do 150. And someone said, well, we're going to do 160. And I said to them, okay, great. I need you to waive the appraisal, because it's never going to appraise, and you're not going to backdoor win this fight. And they said, well, we can't do that. We're doing FHA. I'm like, okay, then you're out.
Right.
Sorry. We're going to go find a real offer that we know is going to close, because at the end of the day, it's not how much you offer, it's how much you get when you close. Right? Because
you have to close.
You know. And if you're the worst thing an inexperienced agent can do is throw way too much money at an offer and then leave it up to an appraiser to figure out what the value of the house is.
Right.
Talk about a
Right.
recipe for disaster. And people didn't understand why I didn't think that was a good idea.
Right.
You know, like you're going to
Like,
let one
because I've seen
person,
things.
yeah, one person who doesn't have a vested interest in this decide what the home is worth.
Mhm.
And he's going to look at the two agents and the buyer and the seller and go, what are you people crazy?
Right.
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 And he's going to like completely ignore anything we have to say. So let's not do that. Let's be realistic and let's have, you know, yes, we can understand it. We can justify the house selling because of the market, the conditions, and that I had 18 other people who wanted to buy this house,
Right.
you know, and this was the offer that we went with for these reasons. You
Well,
know?
and I think it's so that's why like what we do is so important, and why the way we do business and creating relationships with our sellers and our buyers,
Oh, yes.
so that we can effectively explain all of that to them. Because if somebody doesn't know what you just said, if somebody, you know, just has stars in their eyes and says 150,000 for my house, I'll take that offer. And they need a trusted professional like you to say, hold on,
Well, like
this
us,
is why we can't do that.
like
Right.
us,
Right.
because
Yeah,
this,
like that's
this is about selling you.
right. Sorry.
So yeah, no, it's very important to be honest with people because it's very easy to go for the money, but you have to say, well, look, what if that doesn't work out? Right. And here's, you know, here's the pitfall of taking the large amount of money. And there are people that will just offer that much money knowing it's not going to work out.
Exactly.
And they're really banking on a lower price. They have no intention of paying 150 for that house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd rather have somebody who's more sincere and know what they're going to pay for the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know?
well, and they're hoping that they're not going to come across somebody like you and me on the other side of the table who's going to be like, well, you know, hold up, and people are like, oh no, it'll be fine. No, it won't be fine.
No, it won't be fine. It's not going to work out for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller.
Exactly.
It'll work out for the buyers for sure, but it won't work out for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Yeah.
so, and that's the worst thing you could do, is because then you could get less than the asking price.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
right. When you had something for just a little bit over, comparatively or relatively, just a little bit over, but the deal is more solid for, you know, all the financing reasons, etc. So
Yeah, I mean,
anyway, they do. That's why they need us.
yeah, there's a lot of variables. It's more than just how much they offer. Like when can they close? How quick can they close? Who's their agent? Who's their lender? Because you
Right.
need to know, you know, is that a well-known lender, or is
Right.
it, you know, or is it, you know, .com, you know, lender,
Oh my gosh,
your favorite .com lender.
yes, you are preaching to the choir, because oh my gosh, that's so important to me, that it be a lender that I know and trust and have worked with before, and who hasn't screwed me over, or who hasn't said, oh, we'll get it done, Cari, and we need an extension, we need another extension, and I'm like, and they're like, but it closed 3 weeks late. Like,
Yeah.
this is a problem for everyone. And maybe you're schmoozing your buyer and your buyer doesn't care because you're charming them. I'm not going to be charmed. I've got a seller I'm representing, and it needs to work out for them.
Yeah, and they need the equity out of this house so they can go buy their next house.
Exactly.
So you're causing a daisy chain effect.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
yeah,
we
100%.
had some things where we had people who had to sell a house to buy a house. So we talked through that process of like, you know, what do you need to do, and helping people understand the day of closing, you're not in the house. You might spend the night in a hotel and all your stuff is in a U-Haul waiting for your new house and the keys.
Right. And
You know?
they have to know that because so many times people think, oh, and then I can get out later in the week and have my time to move out over the weekend.
No.
What time is it on your contract to get out for the day on closing day?
Oh, we don't do that.
Okay.
It's whatever. So, and I tell people when we write our contract, closing day is written in sand, right?
Okay.
And as we get closer to that day, it becomes more like concrete. But the variable is the lender, right? So you have to cooperate with the lender. When they ask you for something, you need to give it to them as quickly as possible. If you drag your feet, that's going to cause a delay in your closing. And if there's a daisy chain, that's going to impact 2 or 3
Everybody
other
along the
families.
way.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to impact other families. And so you want to be very responsive and respectful. And I always tell the lenders and the attorneys, because we're an attorney state, if you have any difficulty getting something or talking with the sellers or the buyers, whoever the clients are, call me so I can help. I have a good relationship with them. And if you have any difficulties, get in touch with me right away. Don't let a problem linger without the opportunity for me to help.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, I'm so grateful that we don't live in an attorney state and we're escrow only. And so to me, it's just there are fewer things that can come up as a result of having fewer hands and, fewer cooks in the kitchen, because we don't have the attorneys involved. It's just us and the other agent and the lender and the escrow company. But even with just that many fewer people, things can still come up. So I'm just glad though that we don't have have the lawyers involved as well.
Okay. So one question I like to ask everybody when we do this, the last question is, what do you want people to know who are thinking about moving out to the Tri-Cities area? What do you think they need to know about moving to that area?
We are not what you expect, because as we talked about earlier, everyone always thinks it's going to be rainy and cold and green over in Washington State. And it is that way on the west side, but on the east side, it's very different.
Okay.
And you need to know we're kind of a hidden gem. People don't think about us. They don't, we don't have the glamour of the big coastal cities, but we have a lot of great things to offer, including the weather, including employment, including fun things to do. So we're really a great place to be.
Okay.
People need to know that.
Now, anything else?
Just call me for all your real estate needs.
Well, Cari's number is scrolling on the bottom right now, along with her email. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Cari, or you can get in touch with me and I will connect you with Cari for anybody who wants to move out to the Tri-Cities area. Again, Tri-Cities is about 3.5 hours from Seattle, 45 minutes from Walla Walla, Washington, the most famous place in the world.
I know, right?
All right. Hey, Cari, thank you so much for joining with us today and telling everybody about your town.
I love it. Thanks so much. Thanks for the opportunity to do so.
Thanks.
Bye, James.
Happy Friday.
You too.